Hello, and welcome to another Saturday food support group. We have these Zoom meetings every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I just invite people to come and to share their stories because I've had so many people reach out to me in private messages and tell me their stories. And I just couldn't keep it for myself. I had to share with you all of the beautiful things that are happening when people break their addiction to sugar and carbs and processed food. And they get their brains back, they get their bodies back, they get their lives back. And they're just so excited that they can't wait to tell. And so I informed everyone that I would be recording these meetings, and I encouraged them that if they wanted to remain anonymous, that they can turn the camera off. But a lot of people they want to share. They want to share what has happened to them, and they're so excited about their new life. And then I also open it up for questions. If people are still struggling and they're still on this journey, that they can come and ask questions. But if you need more individualized care than just in a group like this, feel free to email me at innerclaritysystem@gmail.com, and I'll walk you through what it looks like to work with me one-on-one. All right, thanks. I hope you enjoy the group. Happy Saturday. We have another Saturday food support group, and some more stories that are coming out, people that are reaching out to me that want to tell their story. So I'm so excited to have you guys here. And if anybody has any questions, please ask them in the chat or raise your hand in the meeting and we will get to that. But first, we're going to start with an incredible story that I stumbled across this week from Nathaniel Lineberry. He posted in the Lion Diet, and I was just floored by his story. And so I asked if he would come and share with us his story. And so Nathaniel, just tell us what your experience has been like.
Okay, well, I'd like to start off by introducing myself. I'm Nate, and
Nate. Okay. Hi, Nate.
nice to meet you, and nice to meet everybody else too. So I would like to start off at around 2007. I was eating the standard American diet, terrible manufactured food. Didn't care. I was eating for whatever tasted good, whatever I wanted. No cares in the world. And around 2007, I got sick at work and passed out at work. So I wound up going to the hospital and said, "Hey, what happened? Why did I pass out?" And they did some tests and everything, said I was hypoglycemic. And they said the only thing you have to do is just control your diet. And then they gave me the standard diet of eating 6 times a day, only whole grains, and reduce your sugar. And, that was it. They sent me on my way. And I was back off living an altered standard American diet. I did some education on it, learned how to do it well. I'm like, okay, if I got to do this, I'm going to do this well. Made a real good difference in my life, cut a lot of the junk food out, So I was going on my merry way and, living with this new diet and this new way of eating, not really getting any healthier though. I was starting to put on a lot of weight, not even caring because, I felt so much better. And, I had moved to Tucson, Arizona from Indiana, and I was sitting at my desk one day, and I noticed this weird tingling coming across my hand, where my pinky finger would go numb, and then my ring finger would go numb, and then my middle finger would go numb, and then my index. It was like this wave of numbness coming across my hand, and I'm like, "Well, what's this?" And it would go away a few days later. I get a little bit of tingling in my left arm and my right arm. And So I went to the doctor and they said, well, it sounds like it, might be MS. You should go to the doctor. Now, couldn't afford to at the time. So I was just, hoping I could at least get working, get some insurance going. And then all of a sudden, 1 weekend, both my arms just dropped dead. 2 to 3 minutes, both my arms. I couldn't move them at all.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got all this weird numbness going on. Someone said I might have MS, and now both my arms are dropping dead. I'm like, all right, I give up. I'm going to the emergency room. And, I tell them what's going on. They put me right into an MRI. And then, I come out of the, MRI. I'm waiting there to talk to the doctor. And then he comes in there with a prescription for prednisone. I'm like, okay, why am I taking this? What happened? What's going on? That I didn't know what was going on. He goes, oh, you didn't know you have MS? Oh, I thought you already knew. That's why I'm giving you the prednisone. I'm like, well, this is news to me. So, in shock, I follow up with the neurologist and wind up, totally shocked, having to readjust my life. I'm like, well, wait a minute here, panicking. I wind up moving back to Indiana to be closer to family, prepare for the transition, and adjust to this new way of life that's coming up because I knew MS was bad.
Yeah.
So, I get settled in. I get, rechecked out with another neurologist who verified the diagnosis and, started me on Copaxone, and that was going to prevent the MS from getting worse. And, I decided to go to college and learn photography because if I ever wind up in a wheelchair, I'll still be able to take a picture.
Good idea.
Yeah. Prepare for my potential future.
Yeah.
So I go on my happy way from there, just like, when I found out I had hypoglycemia. Now I have MS. Okay, we're going to live with this and move on. So I'm going to school. Everything's fine. I start getting side effects from the Copaxone for the MS. Starts tearing up my stomach, start getting high blood pressure, and my doctor starts adding a couple more medications for these symptoms. And, life goes on. I get a job working at Amazon and going to school, learning photography and everything. And, things are getting just, worse and worse. I'm trying to quit smoking. I'm having terrible trouble sleeping. So they gave me sleep studies. And then I've got another set of pills to deal with that because now I have narcolepsy and, well, borderline, sleeping disorders. They wanted to say narcolepsy, but I wouldn't accept that diagnosis. So,
And in your hand, like your arm's not working. Once they gave you the prednisone, you were able, or was it just a period of time that your arms didn't work?
it was just a period of time. I'm sorry for not clarifying.
No, that's okay. That's why I'm here.
They stayed dead for like 2 or 3 minutes at a time before they came back.
Got it.
It was just random other occasions they would just drop dead. And it was,
obviously a sign that something's wrong.
yes. I mean, that's exactly why I went to the hospital. Hey, this is not right. I need my arms to, do stuff with.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So back to going to school for photography.
Okay. So, I've got all these things going on, still eating an awful diet. I mean, terrible diet. Try what I thought was good to go along with the hypoglycemic diet.
Like what? Give me an example ish.
Oh, okay. Typical day, I'd eat a spaghetti meal with whole wheat pasta, sauce, and meat. that was a typical dinner. And then I would have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch at work. Then I had all kinds of other little snacks that were low sugar, but they were, tons of carbs, peanut butter crackers, low sugar jelly, but whole wheat bread. That was my typical. But then I would eat 6 times a day. I mean, I eat breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, second breakfast, you know, then I'd eat another snack when I got home and prepare for dinner, and then I'd eat again before I go to bed. So I was just loading up on all this food, thinking I'm doing good for my body.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was a smoker at the time, which I knew was bad. And I managed to get the strength and went to the doctor, got on medication that helped me quit smoking. This was in April of 2016. And I'm going about 6 months. I got down to about just a cigarette a day for a week or two.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was an addiction. And, one morning I'm feeling really, really awful. I mean, just really awful. Can't move, fatigued. So I drive into work and say, hey guys, I can't work today. I was having problems with the MS while I was working with the fatigue, being dizzy all the time, brain fog, just not healthy. So, I say, hey guys, I can't work. I need to go see the doctor, and I'll come back with a note. So I go home. I'm driving home. As I'm driving home, I'm like, well, I'll go to the doctor on Monday, no big deal. And as I'm driving, I notice I can't move my left arm. And I'm like, this was after a really bad dizzy spell that I had. And I've had a similar dizzy spell to this earlier in the summer. So I'm like, well, it's an MS thing, maybe I'll just go to the doctor today since, he's open and it's still before noon. And, I'm like, okay, I'm driving to the doctor, had this dizzy spell. My left arm can't move and my left leg can't move now. I'm like, well, this isn't right for sure. So I get to the doctor. I can barely walk. I mean, I'm like completely exhausted, can barely walk. I get into the doctor's office, hobble up to the desk. I'm like, I need to see my doctor. And they're like, okay, go sit over there. We'll get him for you. And I go sit in the waiting chair. I'm waiting there. 5 or 6 minutes later, the nurse comes out and says, okay, we'll see you now. I'm like, could you help me walk into the office? I can't move my left arm or leg.
Wow.
She's like, you wait there. I'm getting the doctor. Doctor didn't even come out to see me. He called the ambulance to come pick me up and take me to the hospital right away.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a pontine stroke in my brainstem.
Good grief. At what age?
I was 40 years old. This was in 2017, September of 2017.
Wow. I bet that was so shocking. Just like, okay, what?
Yeah, it was definitely, it was another complete left turn to my life. It's like, well, I can't move my arm. I can't move my leg, I was just trying to absorb what all was going on. I was like, listening to the doctors. They were, putting me in the hospital, doing all these tests, hooking me up to IVs and, doing the standard care. And, they got me in, found out I had a stroke, got me on some medications and
More medication.
More medications, I should say. more medications.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many I can't even remember them.
It's not necessary.
Yeah. So I'm in the hospital for about a month to recover from the stroke. Can't move my left arm, can't move my left leg. My complete left side is paralyzed. Nothing, dead fish. And, once I get to a certain level of strength, they can move me into a therapy hospital. So that's where my recovery starts. And I, sitting there trying to find out what's going on. I get a phone call from my neurologist who, was taking care of my MS. And during my conversation with him, telling him what's going on, he's like, well, you know, Copaxone causes thick blood, sticky blood, and that could be why you had the stroke.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, oh, great. Well, I don't know if I want to stay on this medication, if it's going to give me a stroke, but I stay on it. I have to do my due diligence for the MS, and I'm in good care now. I'm in the hospital. I'm on medication for this to prevent me from having another stroke. So they tried doing a spinal tap on me while I'm in the hospital there, recovering from the stroke, to test for MS. The proteins that are in your spinal fluid is what they were checking for. And they said, well, you don't have MS according to the spinal tap. You don't have any of the proteins that say you have MS.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, my neurologist thought, well, you're one of the rare, I mean, not only is it rare that you have MS, it's rare that you don't have the proteins in your spinal fluid.
Wow.
Have MS. So you're one of the rare 5% of people who don't have that sign but still have MS.
Okay.
Got to do my due diligence, stay on the medicine. I don't want to get worse. So they decided to set me up for a Cadicil test where they, do a biopsy of your skin, test for this thing called Cadicil, and then, well, maybe that caused your stroke.
Cadicil?
Cadicil, Cadasile, is an acronym.
Okay.
So I did some research on that. Since I'm in the hospital, I can't move my left side. I'm under complete supervision. I have to be strapped into a wheelchair at all time and have a nurse taking me to go eat, and under complete care. Learning how to relive without a left side, and So while I'm doing all kinds of research. I'm like, what's Cadicil? Does Copaxone cause sticky blood? Asking all kinds of questions. What's in, trying to learn what's going to be in my life now, and educate myself, because I was all about education, and because you have to learn in order to move your life forward.
Yeah.
So, I had always had the attitude before, that, doctors are bad, they're evil, medication's evil, look into alternative medicines, but because everything was so serious, I'm like, well, that's not proven. I got to listen to my doctors. So I continue on listening to my doctors, trying to research, trying to learn and educate myself. By the time I get out of the hospital, the I just want to comment. I'm sorry. I stumble on my words sometimes,
You're fine. Take your time.
Honestly, I've had 3 strokes altogether, and my left leg has been amputated twice, uh, and a whole host of other things.
So the left leg being amputated, that was a result from one of the strokes.
I have my thoughts, and I'll get to that. At
Okay,
first, I
sorry.
thought it was because of my first stroke, because and for my past smoking, I found out one of the things I had is atherosclerosis. So at that time, I had stumbled onto the keto diet. I got out of the hospital, went back home from the therapy. I was able to use just a special walker. It was called a Hemi walker. It's for stroke victims. My left side is dead, but my right side work. I could be more mobile, learn to do things, and you know, within a few days of when I got out, I got a phone call from an interview I had gone in just before the stroke, and they wanted to offer me the job. It would be as a photographer at Amazon.
Wow.
I had to decline and move on with my life, you know. So while I'm out, I finally get to a hematologist to look at my blood. And they did some genetic testing and this, that, and the other, and diagnosed me with antiphospholipid syndrome. I didn't care at this point. I'm like, whatever. They said it's just another autoimmune disease.
You're just like, okay, it's just another pile of horrible. Like,
Yeah.
Thank you very much, life.
Yeah. So, they told me while I was in the recovery that all I had to do was, change my diet, which they didn't give me any specific diet. They said, but all you have to do is take 1 full-size aspirin a day and you won't have any more strokes.
Okay.
So I'm going on learning about this, working on my recovery. I get a membership at the YMCA, get in the swimming pool. Magical, magical. I mean, that is the best thing that had ever happened to me for my recovery.
Oh, good.
Because I could finally move in ways I couldn't move before. I was, learning to move my limbs again and, just doing great. So I had gained 40 pounds while I was in the hospital for my recovery. A month in the hospital, a month in the physical therapy. And I'm feeling it. It's hurting. It was hurting when I would bend over to try to put my shoe on. My stomach was just so swollen. And a friend of mine had put a comment on Facebook how he had, lost a ton of weight on the keto diet. So I'm like, what? I think I'm going to give that a try. Why not? Diet was good for me, got me, feeling so much better from being hypoglycemic. Maybe it'll do the same here. Maybe I'll lose some weight. So I go into keto as full force as I can. Now, this is a great alternative to, doing what the doctor says and this and the other. I can take control of my life again. I'm on keto. So I do keto, go to the Y, focus on my reconditioning. And, as I'm learning, I'm like, you know what? I have to stop this Copaxone. It's probably the thing that's causing me to be on this GERD medication and this blood pressure medication and all these other medications. So I stopped the Copaxone, completely against my doctor's advice. But, I'm like, I need to have thin blood now. I can't have thick blood. And if this is causing thick blood, I need to reduce my risk of, potentially having another stroke because of thick blood.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I lose 40 pounds. I'm back down to about, 210 from everything that I gained. And, I was feeling fantastic. You know, finally able to move my left arm again, walk around with just a cane. I even get a dog to help me with my therapy. You know, he was my emotional support animal. He was the cutest Jack Russell Terrier. He was in wheels himself. It was oh,
Oh, how
the
precious.
cutest thing ever. And you know, putting him in his wheels and getting out there and walking with my cane daily, and it was so healing. It was so healing. And it's about this time. I'm learning about the keto diet from this doctor named Dr. Ken Berry,
Mm,
and he was quickly becoming my hero.
yes.
And I was, sticking with keto is what I could do. I'm newly on disability now, and I can't work, can't do anything. Being on a limited budget, I have to admit I was doing dirty keto, and it was just enough to where I was able to survive. So it was a survival keto. You
Mm,
standard things that were manufactured, and I start to incorporate other healthy things into my lifestyle. And a lot of these I learned from a doctor, Dr. John Bergman, DC. I'm not sure if you've heard of him.
I think I have.
Um, brilliant, genius doctor. He's a chiropractor now. So that's how I found him, because he's a chiropractor. So I started getting chiropractic care while I'm doing this, listening to him. And he had this list of things that was just fantastic. Excuse me.
No, take your time. Take your time. I just appreciate so much you sharing this story with us.
Oh, I love this because it is such a winning story. I'm just getting through the bad parts.
All right, can't wait.
What I'm trying to do to heal that. Okay, so I'm going on this huge, quest now. Recovery from my stroke, losing this weight. I'm, finally able to stop some of the medications I was on. With my doctors agreeing, I was able to come off the blood pressure medication. I was able to come off my GERD medication. I was able to come off my a few other things I was on. The modafinil for the tiredness, to give me energy and stuff, and for the sleepiness from the sleep studies. I was on 13 medications at this point.
Good grief.
13, for different things, different symptoms. I go to the doctor and say, I'm having this. He's like, here, take this medicine. So I'm finally off 13 of these medications. I've got my dog. I'm walking, I'm going to the Y, my keto, losing all this weight, feeling great, recovering. I mean, everything is going so well. I'm working, going to chiropractor. I'm doing Dr. Bergman's health recommendations. And, he has these 5 things. Let me look at my notes. Okay, you got to have the proper nerve supply. You got to have regular exercise. You got to have proper nutrition, and sufficient rest.
Mm.
And he was giving, his recommendations on how to do all these things. And then, he was talking about proper mental health. And I started, listening to IM videos, which was so encouraging. Started including supplements into my diet because, they help make sure that you have thin blood. And I'm still doing my aspirin. And, I'm doing all his recommendations and things are going great. I'm starting to get to work again. I'm building my own business for musicians, doing photography and graphic design and all these other wonderful things. Life is so great. And then I'm sitting there and watching a program. I absolutely fell in love with Game of Thrones. Season finale, I'm watching the final episode and, it ends. I'm sitting there watching all this, pondering the whole thing, thinking how it ending, sitting there and, I have this dizzy spell and almost fall out of my chair. I'm like, that's not right. One of the things I learned is you'll have dizzy spells, you'll have flashbacks to your strokes.
Mm.
And that's just part of your lifestyle now. So I'm liking, I've had a few other of these across, the year or so. It's springtime of 2018 or 2019 now. I'm sorry, it was 2019 by now. And yeah, May 28th, May 29th of 2019. And I'm sitting there, I'm feeling awful again, this is normal to me. This is just part of the course, part of recovery, part of your lifestyle now. You still have MS and, you have, antiphospholipid syndrome, two awful autoimmune diseases. Somewhere in the mix of there, I learned that, I was having terrible upset stomachs, and, I come to find out I have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I'm like, well, that's lovely. Well, how do you fix irritable bowel syndrome? So I go and look, I got to cut out nightshades. So I cut out my nightshades. So I got IBS, all these other things. I'm having all these symptoms. And, I try to get up and walk, and it's really, really hard to walk. Really, really hard to walk. I'm like,
so you had just the one leg amputated at this point?
no. I still have both legs at this point.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I'm walking around trying to, having times trouble breathing. And I decide to go to the emergency room. Like, I really should go to the emergency room. I'm starting to, not feel good. They get me, they talk to me about what's going on. They put me in the MRI, come out. You had another stroke. What?
Yeah.
I'm doing all this healthy stuff. I'm doing all these things. I'm getting better. I'm off all these medications. I'm doing the aspirin exactly like you say. And I have another stroke? Why? What's going on? This time it was in my cerebellum. The first one was my brainstem, knocked out my left side. This one was in my cerebellum. Here we go again. Okay. And I wind up in the hospital for another couple weeks, trying to recover, learning out what does this stroke do to you? Because, I could still walk around, I could still do things, but this time it's different. This time I'm in extreme pain. I have a headache this time. I am terribly dizzy this time.
Mm.
And after the hospital, they kick me out after a week, say I'm good to go. Yeah, you're fine to go. I didn't feel so fine to go after just a week or two, somewhere around there, a week or two. Well, I wound up going to a completely different emergency room about a week later with these terrible headaches.
Mm.
And they finally give me the actual care that I need. They started me on Valium and a few other medications, and they wanted to admit me to the rehab hospital that I went for my first stroke recovery. So I'm in that hospital for another month doing a recovery from this stroke. And, that was about all that they were able to do, was just give me more physical therapy. And I had worked with my doctor, getting off all the medications and this, that, and the other by this point. And I had found, physical therapy is what will do you the best for your recovery. Stay off all these medications, do your exercise, do your recovery. But now I'm starting this all over again, and I get back, and um, starting a lot of the recovery from my first stroke all over again too, because that was a huge setback.
Yeah.
And I try to reassess my life. By this time, I'm out of school because they actually closed down. Well, I tried going back after my first stroke. I'm like, first semester, I went back. Yeah, this is way too hard for me.
I can imagine.
So I took the next semester off, and they closed the school down while I was, off on that semester. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my business, focus on recovery from my stroke, trying to learn, trying to do healthy things, doing keto as best as I can. And I decide to, one of the things that I needed to do, I was living in the ghetto part of Indianapolis. I mean,
Okay.
straight up ghetto. It was awful. And I'm like, I need to get out of this place. It was like living in a hotel room. I had one of those, window units. It was moldy in there.
Mm.
It was so humid, hard to control. The air conditioner was always going out. Life was miserable for me. I'm like, I have got to get out of here. And that's what I need to do to improve my health.
Mm.
By this point, I accepted, my life was miserable for the rest of my life, regardless. So I'm going to do whatever I can to make it better.
Mm.
Struggle through my recovery, listen to my doctors, try to educate myself, learn new things. What can I do to improve my diet? I move out. For my health's sake, I got to get away from this air conditioner, this mold,
Yeah.
or get away into air conditioning. I get moved into this. I was able to become a housemate with this wonderful person who was so supportive of me gaining my health and starting my business.
What a blessing.
Yes, it was absolutely a blessing. And, he actually became an angel investor for my business, got it going. I was recovering to the point to where I could walk around with just a cane again. And, I was building my health, building strength, and, diagnosed with atherosclerosis, but I had to ignore all this stuff. That's the attitude I took. I'm like, you know what? If I do what the doctors say, I'm going to get worse. If I do what my doctors say, I'm going to get worse. I can see that if I've been listening to these other doctors and I'm getting results that I want to have, maybe there's something to what they have. So I get myself a juicer, and start, that was Dr. John Bergman in DC, the chiropractor. You need to juice, you need to take these supplements, and you to the whole point was, is if you feed your engine, your stomach is your engine for your body. If you feed your engine the right things, you will regain your health, because that's what your body does. And a lot of the lectures that he was giving was about how awful medications are and how they harm, which I seen the harm that they were causing.
Obviously.
Coming off of them and doing proper diet. I seen what he was saying was doing me good. So I wanted to do more of what he was doing. I need to take a quick moment here to rest my voice.
It's okay. It's okay.
So, yeah, if you want to ask some questions or let anybody else speak for a few minutes, anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I did have here in the chat, Becky said, drugs have such horrible side effects. My neurologist said the bipolar meds I took for 7 years caused my drug-induced Parkinson's symptoms. And then, of course, she says she's so sorry to hear about your amputation. But yeah, if you want to pause, if you you need a minute, we can come back to you. Sophia, go ahead.
First of all, I just want to, the thing that comes to me with your story, hello, everybody. Hi, Emily. It's good to see you.
Yes.
Wait, actually. Okay, good to see you.
You see him now.
I'm making some ghee. It's my Saturday morning getting started. But I just love coming to these. I love hearing other people's stories. And the thing that comes to me, and I thought to myself, I'm almost feel blessed that I have been unable to afford health insurance most of my life, because it has forced me to always rely on myself and my internal knowing for what works for me. When I hear of 13 different medications, I can only imagine the feeling of despair that you're like, this is so bad. I don't have any choice but to listen to these doctors, because my experience when I hear these stories is most of these doctors are, effing idiots. Like, they know nothing about nutrition. I thought you were talking about Dr. Eric Berg when you first mentioned the DC guy, because he was a brilliant chiropractor that, all his supplements and stuff. So I thought you were talking about Dr. Eric Berg.
Yeah, I may have said the wrong name.
But I'm so glad that you found Dr. Ken Berry. I think he's got a great personality in the way he shares his knowledge as a doctor. And so I love that. And the other piece is, dude, I just feel for you. I'm like, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for doing the work and continuing to, we're all a work in progress. It's all part of learning to, listen to our bodies, these miraculous machines. And,
And that's what I felt when I first heard his story. Was I was just like, my excuses are a joke.
Yeah, right. I'm like, oh, I gained a couple pounds. Whoops.
My excuses are a joke compared to what Nate's walking through.
Yeah.
And it just gave me such inspiration when I first heard his story, that I was just like, everybody needs to really hear that, we have this innate knowing, this innate navigation system, this fight inside of us, even in the darkest of the darkest. Even and Nate, I could visualize your apartment. I could feel your apartment when you were talking about that. And just to realize that you were experiencing that, and you said, I need better. I need better. I deserve better. I have to get better. And I'm going to have this, horrible lot in life of having the MS and having the strokes and having the everything else. I need to at least change something. And that's what I love. I love that about your story.
Thank you. I still have far more to tell, and it gets far worse.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Well, do you still need to rest your voice, or are you okay?
I think I'm okay now. Did anybody else want to talk?
Tom had his hand raised. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, how you doing? How you doing, Nate? It's nice to hear you. And sorry about my dog. He jumped on my lap.
No problem.
Dogs. I love dogs. He's welcome.
Yeah.
Or she.
It's a Bedlington Terrier. This is Bailey.
Hi, Bailey.
Bailey.
So Nate, it's incredible. And the more I hear these stories, and I was one of them a couple of weeks ago, not near as inspiring, as unbelievable as yours, but I got to tell you, I think the first thing a doctor should do when somebody comes to them is, instead of giving them medication, is do elimination diet right off the bat. Very first thing, no medications, elimination diet, starting with, the lion diet and work your way backwards. That's what I'm gonna tell my doctor when I have an appointment with him on the 27th. I'm gonna have my updated blood work, hopefully. And, I reversed my type 2 diabetes, and I think I'm going to tell him, I'm going to say, doctor, nothing against you, but this is bull crap. And I think the very thing you're giving me all these medications, and what we should have started with was, a proper human diet, but you don't even know what that is. I got to be careful not to insult him now. So back to you, Nate. Right. I'll be eagerly listening. I have a guest coming, so I may have to drop off early, but I'm going to listen as long as I can. If not, I'll catch the rest on the replay. So I really appreciate you.
I absolutely wish you the best of luck, and you are on the right path. Absolutely on the right path. I've got some great advice to give following my story. You got to get through these last terrible parts.
Okay.
Leading up to my, this is all to lead up to my victory. I can consider myself sitting in a place of victory right now. And, I want to talk about the mistakes that I learned, because that is an important thing of the things that changed my directions. Like when I first learned about keto, that was a huge change and shift in my health. But it also led me down to a dark path that caused me to get worse. And, I love to talk. Part of my symptoms is I get this reverberation inside my head from the strokes. So the longer I talk, I just need to pause it. So does anyone else need to talk, want to talk, questions? Because I've got about at least another half an hour if I could sum it up quickly.
What if you did part 2 next Saturday there, Emily?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. We can just do part 2. I really think that is important for us to convey the complications that come along with strokes, that come along with, all of this, and to take it at your pace and to meet you where you're at. I think that this has been really, really incredible. And what I really want people to know, to make sure and listen to next week, is that it gets better. I obviously
much better.
I found him in the Lion Diet group, so that'll just tell you enough right there. But thank you so much, Nate. I really, really do appreciate that. And Tom, I think it's a great idea to just have it be.
It's like a movie trailer teaser. So we're going to have double the audience next weekend. So
come back for next week for Nate part 2.
Right.
All right. And I did see in the chat, Allison said, "Thank you so much for sharing your story. I am in a place of despair with years of nerve pain. I am so glad to hear and learn from everyone." Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Allison. And I am so glad that you're here. I am so glad you're here. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. Becky has an addiction question. She still has trouble avoiding small amounts of sourdough bread, vegetables, and sometimes ice cream, even though I know they make me sick pretty soon with bathroom problems. And then she says, what was your solution? And so, Becky, you're going to have to wait for Nate's solution until next week. But I definitely will talk to you whenever we get a chance, Becky, about some of the addiction that you're going through. And then Mari says, "Yes, Thomas, Emily is the reason I have been on the Lion Diet for 1 week today. I feel so much better already and cravings are gone." Wow. That's awesome, Mari. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sophia says, "I'm listening to Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall, narrated by Kendra Hall. Share this with Nate." Okay, it's a link that's in the chat. Can you see that, Nate?
I've never been able to figure out how to use the chat on this.
It's down at the bottom. You just click where it has a little caption.
Oh, I see. Chat.
And it says chat, and it pops up on the right. And
Okay,
so if you scroll down, there's a link there that Sophia put in there that says Audible. It's a book called.
Hey,
go ahead.
Let me just jump in really quick. I sent that to you direct because
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's okay. I just I want to share this in a way, Nate, and I thought it would come better from Emily because I'm a little bit of a blunt object when it comes to sharing things. But as a person who loves storytelling, as I've listened to your story, and I mean, it's epic what you've gone through. The ability, your desire to learn. I've heard you tell your story. Your desire to learn is if you pick up this book, it's called Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. Read this. It's kind of like how you tell, like stories are awesome, but how you tell your story makes it different in how it impacts people, right? And I think because you love to talk, I think it would just, you're going to impact so many people with your story. When you get to that point where you're telling it like, some guy standing on stage, sitting on stage, whatever you're doing, your story is going to change lives. So I just want to support you in learning how to tell it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. Okay.
Did it land really blunt? Because that's not what I wanted.
No, you're fine.
Oh, you're
Okay.
fantastic. Okay. If you could give me just a moment, I would love to have this link, but I cannot find it.
No. I'm going to send it to you in Facebook. I'll send it to you directly.
Okay.
I'll send it to you directly in Facebook.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to read sometimes. My third stroke, which I haven't gotten to yet, was an occipital stroke, which made me virtually blind. I could see dark shades, colors, but I was virtually blind. So that's another recovery that I am going through. So when you said look in the chat, I see all these words in text, and you
It's
said, look,
okay.
this person, and it just takes a long time for me to get through.
That's okay. We've got time. We've got
Okay.
time because the world needs to hear your story, Nate. The world needs to hear your story. And you've already inspired me. I was humbled and inspired by you this week. I was frustrated with some stuff that I'm going through. And I was just like, shut up, Emily. Like, oh my gosh, like you have nothing to complain about. Nate is here and Nate is still fighting. So if Nate can keep fighting, I can keep fighting. And I'm so grateful that we have crossed paths. I can't wait to hear from you next week. And I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. And thank you guys so much for coming. And we'll have part 2 next week.
Wonderful. I look so forward to it.
Me too. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the group. There is always so much beauty in being transparent and in really recognizing that we're all not alone on this journey. And so if you want to, feel free to join the Saturday support groups. They're every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And if you need more individualized care, then reach out to me and email me at innerclaritysystem@gmail.com. And I would love to walk through and show you what it looks like to work with me one-on-one. All right.